Hello, everyone. This is a quick video review of a new documentary that is exclusive to YouTube. It's the Tom Petty Somewhere You Feel Free documentary. It was put out in accordance with his estate and his daughters, as well as surviving members of the Heartbreakers. And it just premiered today, November the 11th, and I am in my apartment just having finished it and wanted to go over my thoughts on the documentary. So it's about an hour and a half, give or take, um, and it incorporates a lot of never before seen footage that was found um, early 2020 by Petty's family. And the footage shows crystal clear, beautiful shots of Tom Petty, the boys in the band, and Rick Rubin, as well as Petty's daughters during the making of the Wildflowers album in the early 90s. Of course, Wildflowers came out in 1994, and last year, the marvelous box set, um, of Wildflowers and all the rest. I know it's backwards, but this is a very informal video. Wildflowers and all the rest came out. Um, Again, I've mentioned it several times. It's my favorite box set that's ever come out. And so the documentary, it's not exactly it's not a track by track. A lot of these documentaries they go through each track in the album in sequence, and they don't really do that. They kind of jump around, and but what I thought was really neat is that it incorporates a lot um, of the Wildflowers songs that didn't make the cut that ended up on the all the rest portion of the box set. Songs like Harry Green, Climb That Hill Blues, Hung Up and Overdue. Of course, Hung Up and Overdue made it onto the follow up album, the She's the One soundtrack. But Petty wrote it and recorded it during these sessions. And there's some great footage of the Dogs Have Wings tour, which was the tour to mark the Wildflowers release, and just killer footage. Petty sounding great. You have Steve Ferrone on drums. It was his first tour as a Heartbreaker. You have Benmont Tench, Mike Campbell, Scott Thurston, and Howie Epstein doing the touring duties of this album. Of course, Wildflowers was put out as a Tom Petty solo album. However, it was essentially a Heartbreakers album minus Stan Lynch, the drummer, who was removed from the band during these sessions. And it's neat because they do mention Stan. They show some archival footage of Stan in the 90s. And they talk about how in the 90s, Tom Petty had an obligation to complete his record contract by putting out his greatest hits as well as recording 2 songs. And of course, the songs that were released were a cover of Thunderclap Newman's Somewhere in Something in the Air, and then Mary Jane's Last Dance, which of course became a huge hit. And so what was happening was Tom Petty was recording, and they talk about this in the documentary. Tom Petty was recording Wildflowers. He was ticked off that he had to record a couple more songs for greatest hits, even though these songs weren't hits, they were brand new songs. So he left the studio where he was recording Wildflowers with producer Rick Rubin, and they went to another studio. They got Stan Lynch back on the drums, and they recorded Mary Jane's Last Dance and Something in the Air. And then a couple months later, Stan was out of the band. So with the recording of Wildflowers, again, you had 3 of the Heartbreakers at that time, and then you also had Scott Thurston playing some leads and some instrumentation, who ended up becoming a member of the Heartbreakers. And then you also had Steve Ferrone, who was also a member of the Heartbreakers up until Tom's passing. You have some new interviews, new footage with Rick Rubin. Tom Petty's daughter, Adria, is shown briefly at the beginning. You have Rick Rubin talking to Mike Campbell and Benmont Tench outside of, it looks like, the Shangri-La Studios that Rick Rubin operates. You have new um, interviews with Steve Ferroni, and you have discuss some archival pieces from, like I said, Stan Lynch, from Tom, and then also briefly from Howie Epstein as well. And it's just a really good documentary. I mean, if you like the Wildflowers album, check it out. But it's really more about seeing this footage and how clear it's in 4K resolution, and it's just so clear. And it's like it could have been recorded yesterday because Tom was just, he looked relaxed. He's wearing denim. He's wearing like a buckskin jacket, and um, it really goes to show what kind of a songwriter and what kind of a guy he was in the studio. Um, there's a great moment too where he's talking about how he enjoyed singing with Howie Epstein, and they're singing the song "It Won't Be Wrong" by the Byrds. I think it's from the Turn 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 album, their second album. I might be wrong, but I think it's from the Turn 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 album, and it just sounds so great. Howie is singing a lot of the lead on it, and as soon as I heard it, I was looking online trying to find video recordings of the Heartbreakers doing that song, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So that was really cool to hear them do that. Of course, Tom loves the Byrds, loved the Byrds. They did Feel a Whole Lot Better on the Full Moon Fever album. They did um, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star many, many times throughout their career. And of course, it's on the Pack Up the Plantation live album. And you know, Tom had an affinity for the Byrds, so that was cool to see. But I think it's one of those documentaries where I'm like, wow, Tom really was honed in. And the fact that during this time, Tom was going through separation issues with his wife. Of course, he had his daughters. He, was separating from Stan Lynch, who was, an original member of the Heartbreakers. So there was a lot of change going on. And of course, we found out later on, they don't mention it in the documentary, but, Tom was dealing with heroin at this time as well. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. But if you've enjoyed the Wildflowers box set and you need a little, another taste of the Wildflowers sessions, check it out. It's just called Tom Petty Somewhere You Feel Free, which of course is a line from Wallflowers. And yeah, check it out. If you've already seen it, let me know what you think about it. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but subscribe if you haven't already. And I look forward to talking to you all very soon. Take care, and I appreciate you watching.